Okay, hi everyone. My name is Yuting. My concentration is IPE. Today I'm going to talk about risk modeling. So why should we talk about it? Okay, I see everyone is laughing. It's one of the most, it has the most workload class in size. So why should we talk about risk modeling? Because risks are just common factors that happen in our life. For example, at this moment right now, in this class, we might have a probability of dying because the buildings might fall down or something might happen. And there are also certain factors, for example, to apply the one-child policy in China. What are the risk factors behind that? So it's really interesting to think about it. And today I'm going to talk about first, what is risk and risk model? Second, what are the four important components in risk model? And third, I'm going to give a case study in risk modeling. To begin with, what is risk and risk model? What is risk? So risk is uncertain factors that comes along with different outcomes. And there are two types of risk. The first type is common risk, for example, fire, earthquake, flood. The second type is systematic risk. So back in 2008, it started with one bank that could not pay back its debt to the other bank, to Bank B, and Bank B couldn't pay back its debt to Bank C, and just moved along and then caused a global disaster in financial markets. So this is one example of the systematic risk. And so what is risk model? So risk model is basically a decision modeling. It comes along with the question for one entity, and then this entity takes a strategy results in different outcomes. It comes along with different factors, and then we'll have different outcomes that will then we can trace back to think about what is the best strategy we should take. And a risk model is always built on an Excel spreadsheet. Actually, many Excel spreadsheets. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to talk about the second question. What are four important components in risk model? The first one is the framing question. What is a good framing question? It's not like, what is the probability of me dying in this class? This is not the framing question. But the framing question is, what is the best strategy for me to avoid dying in this class? Because I will have different strategies, and then along with these different action choices, I'll have different risk factors, and different risk factors result in different outcomes. I've compared the different outcomes, then I choose the best strategy. This is a framing question. And the second one is the POV, which means the point of view, because we always have to take a person into consideration into this risk model. For example, the risk factor for me to cross the road from Bob to Ned is different from the risk factors for a young woman in Africa to across the African prairie. So it's really different, and we really need to think about the person. The third component is the multiple outcomes with different values. So outcomes always result from my strategy choice, the external factors, the uncertain factors. So outcome is also a random variable, which means we have to use a deterministic model to present the different outcomes that result from your strategies, your uncertain factors, and we need to quantify these outcomes, because in that case, you could compare different outcomes and you could choose your best strategy. For example, an outcome could be a net present value of a company, which strategy gives this company the highest net present value, and this strategy is the strategy that the company should choose. Okay, the fourth component is the uncertainty. Because risk factors are uncertain, so we need to calculate the probabilities of each risk factor. For example, it might be a normal distribution, it might be a Poisson distribution, it might be discrete probabilities, and which one to use is based on your understanding of this specific risk factor. Okay, I know this is a little complicated, but let me at last give you a case study. It's my assignment. I'm considering, so I'm doing a business plan for a Chinese company, which is Tianjin Tianhai, and it actually wants to make acquisition of a US technology company. So my POV is this Tianjin Tianhai, which is state-owned company in the marine industry field. And its strategy is to consider how much shares to buy of this US tech company, which is Ingram Macro. And my risk factors might be there will be investigation from US government about security concern. There will be interference from Chinese government about security concern. There might be fail in the markets because I can't sell my products to these two markets after acquisition. And also there might be like fail in integration inside my company because those Chinese workers have to cooperate with American workers. I'm not sure whether they can cooperate with each other. So after considering all these risk factors, and then they result in different sales, different costs of products, different operational costs, and then I will get the net present value, the free cash flow of each year in the next 10 years, and then I sum them up, and I will get the NPV, which is the net present value of the company will earn after this acquisition. And the strategy with the highest NPV is the strategy I will choose. Okay, so let's, at last, to sum up, so a risk modeling can be applied to every academic field, politics, economics, finance, and just to remember always to keep those 4 important components, your risk modeling. That's all, thank you.
Yeah. One question.
So how is risk modeling can be applied to social science, like politics?
Could you give me a more specific
Like-
topic you want to?
Like what we were talking about, FARC, right? And the votes about that. And say they have a second referendum, what would be the outcome? Can we use risk modeling to predict that? Or
Yeah, sure, but we have to think more specifically. Like, if you want to think, so first of all, which people are you concerning about? Like, which people are you concerning about?
like Colombia?
Okay, Colombian. So our POV is Colombian. So we kind of study what they prefer, what are their like political preference, what they really want. So this is our POV, and what the strategies they can take. They vote for referendum. They don't vote for referendum. Okay, this is our strategy choice. And what are the risk factors after this strategy choice? They might fail in choosing the right one. They might there might be interference from other nations. There might be disagreement inside the people themselves, and all these risk factors will result in the outcomes. And the outcomes we can actually calculate the probability of those those failures, and then we can give the value to the outcome. And for example, how much harm might do to the people for each risk factor, and then with the value of the harm to multiply their probabilities, we can get a final score. We compare the score of each strategy, and the score with the highest strategy is the strategy we could choose. So whether they will vote for referendum or not.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.